Hey guys, it's Tierlis here. Welcome back to the Dream Grove for part 2 of Restoration Druids. We're looking at the Restoration Druids specialization and taking a look at what the changes are coming to this specialization in World of Warcraft Legion. In the first video we took a look at the abilities that have changed, been removed, and are new to a Restoration Druid, as well as looking at the beautiful artifact weapon that you see on the back here. In this video, we will be looking at both the PvE and the PvP talents that are available to a Restoration Druid in World of Warcraft Legion. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Starting with the PvE talents and the 15 tier, first we have Prosperity. Swiftmend now has 2 charges and its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. This is kind of huge because in the first video I mentioned that Swiftmend basically while it now no longer requires any type of hot effect to be like a regrowth or a rejuvenation to be on the target, which is a huge quality of life improvement. It does have a 30-second cooldown. So having 2 charges basically gives it a 15-second cooldown, which is even better than what, well, it's the same as it is on live, but if it's reduced by 5 seconds, then it's a 12.5-second cooldown, which makes it even better than it is on live. So this is a talent that I do believe many people will be looking at. There's Cenarium Ward, which functions exactly the way as it does in the 30 tier on live, so nothing has changed there. And then there is Abundance. For each rejuvenation you have active, the cast time of Healing Touch is reduced by 10%, and the critical effect chance of regrowth is increased by 10%. So as I go ahead and put rejuvenation on all these targets, my healing touch time has been reduced by 30%. As you can see in the top right hand corner, it shows that it is functioning that way. I have a 30% critical chance on my regrowth and then the 30% reduction in cast time on my healing touch. Honestly, I can see PvEers really taking Abundance, it being more popular, especially if you have rejuvenation on a lot of targets. I mean, you can very well go through with a low global cooldown, go through and get a rejuvenation on a lot of targets, and then that will allow your healing to really go through the roof. On the opposite side of things, I see PvPers kind of taking Prosperity, because having that double Swiftmend charge will be really useful to have in PvP, though I would not count out PvEers from taking this. I'm not sure how Cenarium Ward will play into all of this. It depends on how powerful it actually is, how the numbers actually balance out once they're finally done tweaking everything over at Blizzard HQ. In the 30 tier, we have a Return of Renewal. Works exactly as it does on live, so nothing changed there. Same with Displacer Beast and same with Wild Charge. You may have noticed that Blizzard has gone away from okay, this tier is going to be all about gap closing, which was kind of what the 15 tier was on live right now. They no longer really care about that. Instead, they're just making interesting choices for you that you kind of have to choose into, which is, in my opinion, a much better talent tree, because then you get to choose your play style instead of, what talent is going to be the best. It gets rid of those, it really kind of gets rid of those cookie cutter builds somewhat. There are going to be situations for PvE in which, like, maybe, for instance, in this tier, I hardly see Renewal not being taken for a PvEer. Because that's a quick heal that you can do on yourself, so that you can deal with healing all of the other players that are out there that need healing. So, in honesty, there will be selections like that, but I'm glad that they no longer just have, okay, this is the baseline, this is what we're going to be doing for everyone in this, this is the theme of the tier, and we no longer have that issue anymore. In the 45 tier, this is the Affinity tier. I talked about this a lot in the abilities section. About how you will have some of the return of some of those abilities that you lost that weren't necessarily specific to a Restoration Druid, such as, Shred and Mangle. It comes in this tier. So I had Balanced Druid, and you may have seen it in my playbook and wondering why I wasn't talking about it, and it's because it was a part of this Affinity. It was part of this talent. So if I choose Balance Affinity, that means I get Astral Influence, which is baseline for all Restoration which is baseline for all balanced druids. It increases the range of all your abilities by 5 yards. It also gives you Moon Conform, Star Surge, and Lunar Strike, which is Starfire. It's just been renamed Lunar Strike. So, in all honesty, I don't know why I have this one selected. It's not really my favorite. The increased 5 yards on abilities I do not think is that great as a Restoration Druid. I think these other passives will be better. Here we have Feral Affinity, which you get Feline Swiftness, which used to be a talent. It increases your movement speed by 15%. You also learn Shred, Rip, Ferocious Bite, Swipe, and your energy regeneration is increased by 35%. And then the last one here is Guardian Affinity. You gain Thick Hide, reduces all damage taken by 10%. You also get Mangled Thrash, Iron Fur, which is a new damage reduction ability coming into Guardian Druids, and then Frenzied Regeneration, which is your heal. In my opinion, probably, considering how effective healing over time effects should be for druids in World of Warcraft Legion, I may be leaning towards Feral Affinity just to have the extra movement speed to be able to get in and out and away from people while my HOTS do all the work. I don't have to do anything while I just run away from them with the extra movement speed. So you may consider, the 10% damage reduction, flat damage reduction. Then you can go into bear form and use frenzied regeneration on top of all the HOTS you have on top of yourself. That may be something. I really don't see Balance Affinity being that useful, especially since you already have Solar Wrath and Moonfire and Sunfire at your disposal, so you have ways to dish out damage. As a Restoration Druid, there really is no reason to have balance there. In the 60 tier, we have Mighty Bash, which functions exactly as it is on live. It's just been moved down a tier. Same thing with Mass Entanglement. It has been moved up a tier. And it is still functions exactly the same. And then Typhoon functions exactly the same. It has been moved up a tier. So literally, this is an entire tier of abilities that are still functioning exactly as they are on live. Here we have Soul of the Force. When you cast Swiftmen, you gain Soul of the Force, increasing your next regrowth or rejuvenation by 200%, or increasing your next healing of your wild growth by 75%. How is this different from what it is on live? It increases, first of all, the healing touch cast time reduction has been removed. The increase on your regrowth and rejuvenation is 200% as opposed to 100%. And then on top of that, the increase in healing on your wild growth is 75% instead of 50%. So basically, with the exception that you lost the reduced cast time and healing touch, which I do not think is much of a loss, you gain a huge buff to all of your healing. Now you compare this, if you take Prosperity, and then you have Soul Force as well, that means about 12.5 seconds. Every 12.5 seconds, you have that big burst in your regrowth and rejuvenation or your wild growth. So that's something really to look into. Incarnation, Tree of Life, still functions just as it does on live. I'll go ahead and use it right here just so you can see nothing has really changed. I turn into a big tree and everything is enhanced just as it is on live. So you still have your wonderful ability to transform into a big tree and dish out some sick healing. Third in this tier is your Germination, which is moved from the 100 tier. It still works exactly the same. You can apply Rejuvenation twice to the same target. However, it no longer knocks or increases Rejuvenation by 3 seconds. So it's still just 18 seconds flat. That's all you get. You do not get up to the 21 seconds as you did before. It is just flat 18 seconds, but you can put Rejuvenation twice to the same target. Now, I do not believe, I need to double check here just to make sure that it does not interact too much with your Dreamwalker. This ability right here, Wild Growth has a chance to momentarily shift into your mind into Emerald Dream, instantly healing all of your allies affected by Rejuvenation. I do not believe if you have 2 Rejuvenations on the target that you will get the double heal out of this. It's just a target affected by Rejuvenation, so you only get 1 out of that. So I just want to point that out there. I have not tested that, but I'm pretty sure that it's only 1 heal that you're going to get out of that, not 2 from Germination. In the 90 tier, we have Cultivation. When Rejuvenation heals a target below 60% health, it applies Cultivation on the target, healing them for 26,000 over 6 seconds. So you have an extra burst of heal with that Cultivation on the target. These are all below. As you can see, as I use this, Cultivation does show up on the target. And being that it is continually... notice that if you look in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that Cultivation is constantly refreshed each time Rejuvenation ticks, which means that so long as this target is beneath that 60% threshold, cultivation will constantly be on that target until it rises above that 60% threshold. So this really is some like big oomph into your rejuvenation for all targets below 60% health. So if you're raid healing, this is something that I would consider to be very powerful. There's Inner Peace, which reduces the cooldown on Tranquility by 60 seconds. That brings it down to I believe, a 2-minute cooldown. Remember, with your artifact weapon, your Tranquility can now be cast while moving. And then last is Spring Blossoms. Each target healed by efflorescence is healed by an additional 13,000 over 6 seconds. Now this is going to be a one-time use, so we'll go ahead and use efflorescence here, and I will use it on these targets, and they all have Spring Blossoms. And each time I was wrong, each time it ticks, it will continue to refresh Spring Blossoms on that target. So everyone who keeps passing in and out of this thing will continue to get that extra healing off of Spring Blossoms. So really, you're kind of picking your choice in terms of AoE healing increase. Okay, either you're more of a rejuvenation person and you want more out of that, and so you take cultivation, or you like more of what efflorescence brings, and so you go with Spring Blossoms. It's really the choice up to you. And then you have Inner Peace in the middle, in which you're more concerned about having massive burst heals comes up, which really can be a condition on what type of PvE raid boss you're coming. You know, maybe you have a PvE raid boss that has a really harsh a really harsh phase that comes about every 2 minutes, and in that case you may want something like Inner Peace that gives you that 2-minute tranquility. So that's something to think of. In the 100 tier, we have Moment of Clarity, which should look very familiar. Omen of Clarity now affects the next 3 regrowths. This used to be different in that Omen of Clarity now lasts 7 seconds instead of 1 cast. Now they decided to keep it to casts instead of actual time, but you actually get 3 now. In the middle here, we have Stone Bark. Reduces the cooldown of Iron Bark by 30 seconds. So Iron Bark is a 1-minute cooldown instead of a 1.5-minute cooldown. It increases healing from your heal over time effects by 20%. So that is the talent that comes in, that I mentioned the ability, the talent comes in, that comes from Stone Bark. And having that ability will give you that extra heal from Iron Bark. You will get that through Stone Bark. Ugh. A little flustered there, sorry about that. The last ability here is Flourish. It extends the duration of all your heal over time effects on friendly targets within 6 yards by 6 seconds. So I'll just go ahead and use this so that you guys can get an idea of what it's going to be like. I will go ahead and use Rejuvenation on all these targets, and then I'll use Wild Growth, and then we will use Flourish. And everything has been extended. Use our artifact weapon just for fun, just so you can see just how much healing can get out of that. Those all paired together are really potent, extremely potent. So combining Flourish with the different hots you have out there really can be pretty potent out there. I personally like Flourish. That's my favorite. I like it better than Stonebark. Stonebark is definitely more a single target healing, tank healing. So if you're going to be the tank healer, then you want to take something like Stonebark, so that you can put it on a target and you can see what it does, and it does a better job of healing the main tank. But if you're an AoE healer, you have the option of Flourish. So the talents really do give you several times, I believe, in the 90 tier, they go over your AoE healing potential. And then you have some options in the 15 tier, you have some options, and then the 100 tier, you have options all over the place on whether you're a tank healer or you're an AoE healer, or whether an AoE healer, you're a raid healer. You have an options of which abilities you like using more than others, and that's what really makes it a good talent trait. So with that being said, let's look into the honor talents for a PvP Restoration Druid. The first tier is going to be the same across all specializations in the game. The second tier will be the same across all healing specs in the game. And then the last 4 tiers will be dealing with Restoration Druids specifically. So, going into the first tier, just so you know, leveling in PvP will work like Call of Duty. You'll start at level 1 and you'll work your way all the way up to level 50, and then you can prestige and drop all the way back down to level 1 and you'll be prestige level 2. You gain these abilities starting with Gladiator's Medallion, and you'll move all the way down to Focus Growth, and then you'll start back up at an Adaptation, and then move all the way down to Early Spring. Same with the third tier. So if you really like a lot of the options in the right-hand tier, you may not want to give up, you may not want to go into Prestiging, because that will be a lot of time that you'll have to continually deal with not having that third tier of talents available to you. So, with that, first we have the first tier, which deals with your Honorable Medallion. An Honorable Medallion is a medallion that is given to you at the very beginning when you get into a BG. It is a 3-minute cooldown trinket. Gladiator's Medallion will replace that and bring it down to 2 minutes, so that's basically a standard trinket the way you have it now. It will replace your Honorable Medallion. Your second option here is Adaptation. All loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or more will activate your Honorable Medallion spell, but only causes it to incur a 60-second cooldown. I like this, mostly on DPS, not really much on healers. Gladiator's Medallion, I feel like healers you really do need to have control over, much more control over when you're able to get out of CC effects and so forth. And so I think taking Gladiator's Medallion will be more of the route that healers will take instead of something like Adaptation. Adaptation I really like for DPS specs. Do you know that if you actually activate your Honorable Medallion, it will incur that 3-minute cooldown, and you will not be able to have Adaptation for 3 minutes as opposed to the 60 seconds that you would get if it automatically activated. The third one here is Relentless, which will replace your Honorable Medallion, but the duration of incoming crowd control effects is reduced by 25%. I say this is mostly for tanks, but considering how powerful HOTS can be for Druids, this may be something that Restoration Druids might consider taking. And this would be the only healing spec I would consider, or really the only spec outside of tanks that I would even think would even remotely consider tanking Relentless. And that is just because the healing over time effects for Druid are so powerful. In the second tier, this is the healing tier, we have Defender of the Weak. After healing a target below 50% health, you gain 20% haste for 5 seconds. Don't know how popular that will be. Depends on how much haste will affect a Druid in not Warlords of Draenor, in World of Warcraft Legion. We have Vim and Vigor. While you are at or above 80% health, your healing is increased by 20%. It's pretty easy for Restoration Druid with HOTS to keep themselves above 80% health, so I can see this being a popular talent. And then there's Inner Renewal. Casting effective heals on yourself directly will refund 50% of the spell's mana cost. So you have a little bit of mana conservation there. I don't know how intensive mana is going to be in terms of PvP, so I don't know if this will be really popular. But it's in there, so maybe Blizzard does intend for it to be pretty intense for PvP. I don't know. In the third tier, we're going to start getting into Restoration-specific abilities. First, we have Disentanglement. Healing Touch and Regrowth remove all snare effects from the target. That's powerful. That's awesome. So, Healing Touch and Regrowth, you do have to actually use the ability, will remove all snare effects from the target. Now, you usually have your snare removal through shapeshifting, which is fine. So this is for other targets. So if you're playing a flag, capture the flag type battleground, this may be something that is very useful to have, is Disentanglement. There's Thorns. Sprout Thorns, causing 15,000 nature damage to attackers when hit, lasts 15 seconds. Good old Thorns making its way back. However, 45-second cooldown is not really that great. And it only lasts 15 seconds. If this were more of a permanent buff, I can see this being taken more. Otherwise, I can see Disentanglement being way better. The last here is Druid of the Claw. While in bear form, your chance to be critically hit is reduced by an additional 10%. In addition, when hit by melee attacks while in bear form, you have a 10% chance to cast Rejuvenation on yourself free of cost. Okay. In the PvE tree, we talked about the different affinities. Taking Guardian Affinity and getting something like Iron Fur and Frenzied Regeneration, and then on top of that you have Druid of the Claw. You put all your HOTS on yourself. You go into Druid form. You use Rejuvenate. You use your you put all of your healing over time effects on yourself. I don't want to put it on the target dummy. Put it on myself. Put my healing over time effects on myself, and flip into bear form. and I have them all there, and then I'll be able to use my Guardian abilities as well. I can use Flourish in that form as well. I can use I have a 10% chance for rejuvenation to be activated again on my target as well. I'm not sure if that would actually affect a germination proc if you have germination in your as your selected talent. So that's something I don't know there. But so that your original rejuvenation will stay on there, and then a germination will come on top of that. That's something that I have not tested. But just trying to give you guys the idea of how much possibility is there with going into Guardian form and being a Restoration Druid. Uh, Honestly, unless we're talking about Capture the Flag with Disentanglement, I see Druid of the Claw easily being the PvP talent of choice because it's just going to make you a complete nuisance to kill as a Restoration Druid. It's going to be frustrating to kill a Restoration Druid with this Druid of the Claw. I mean, you have the 10% reduction from Guardian, 10% damage reduction from Guardian. Iron Fur, which reduces physical damage, melee damage, basically done against you. And then you have Frenzied Regeneration on top of all of your heals. And then this, it's a lot. So, think about that. I really think that's pretty strong to have in PvP, and it will make Restoration Druids really frustrating to deal with. Here we have Cyclone. Cyclone is back as a talent in PvP. So if you use Cyclone a lot as a Restoration Druid, which most Restoration Druids do, Cyclone is basically your talent here. However, it's going to compete with Encroaching Vines. When your Entangling Roots is removed, dispelled, or ends, the target's physical damage is reduced by 25% for 4 seconds. To be honest, not the greatest, in my opinion. Not next to a Cyclone, which is very powerful. And then you have Deep Roots. Damage no longer cancels your Entangling Roots. I mean, your Entangling Roots will always last the full duration. People who may be frustrated with this may want to take Deep Roots. And honestly, this should be baseline, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe people who are very anti-Resto Druid would disagree with that statement, but that's kind of how I feel about the with Deep Roots. So I really do see Cyclone being as the go-to talent on this tier. In the next tier, we have Nourish, which is a passive. Nourish used to be an ability. It reduces the cast time of Healing Touch by 0.5 seconds and automatically applies Rejuvenation. So when you use Healing Touch, you will automatically get a Rejuvenation out of it. So this could be a nice ability to pair with Disentanglement. You're using Healing Touch to get someone out of a snare, and then you get the free Rejuvenation out of it. That would bring Healing Touch's cast time down to about 1.5, 1.75 around there. So that's something to think of. We have Revitalize. When targets with your Rejuvenation are hit by melee attack, they will be healed for 43,000 and the duration of your Rejuvenation will be refreshed. This is pretty powerful. I really like this. So if you're spreading Rejuvenations out all over the place, melee heavy team coming into attack, and you have constant, and they get hit by crits, your Rejuvenation will, I mean, think about it, the heal that comes out of it will negate some of that crit, and then your Rejuvenation will be refreshed on the target. So that's actually pretty powerful. Last, we have Fortified Bark. Targets with your Iron Bark take 25% reduced chance to be critically hit. This is more of a tank in a Capture the Flag type of situation, avoiding people from being focused down too quickly. Disentanglement would work well with this, but Nourish also works well with Disentanglement, so that's something to look at. My personal favorite for this tier is probably going to be Revitalize, though. When targets with your Rejuvenation are hit by melee critical hit, just imagine, I'm not sure if this also, when targets, the wording, when targets also refers to yourself, so if you have Rejuvenation on yourself, just imagine how powerful it is when you combine Revitalize with Druid of the Claw, with Germination, with Guardian Affinity. I mean, it really starts to stack on top of one another and really become potent. In the last tier, we have Focused Growth. Your Lifebloom also applies Focused Growth to the target, increasing Lifebloom's healing by 15%. Stacks up to 3 times. I'm not sure if that means Lifebloom can stack 3 times on the target, or that each tick will increase Lifebloom's healing by 15%. That is something that I'm not quite sure about. Going into the reason why I can't show you this is because these only activate in PvP. I cannot show you that inside a PvP environment because it's really hectic. There's a lot going on. It's difficult to narrate and talk and show you these abilities one by one. And I can't change talents in and out of PvP combat, so inside of Battlegrounds, that makes things really difficult to actually show and test. So I'm not sure if that means that Lifebloom will stack up to 3 times. What I will do is I'll go into a BG and figure out, and I will put it in the comments below so that you guys know how that works. We have early spring. Wild growth is now instant cast. This is awesome. I was just talking in the last episode about how much I miss wild growth being instant cast. I love this. I love this ability a lot. Especially for world PvP. If you're in PvP combat, having instant cast wild growth trying to be a raid healer is pretty awesome. So this will be something that I personally will look forward to using over the others most likely. The last is overgrowth, which is an actual ability. It instantly applies regrowth, Lifebloom, rejuvenation, and wild growth to the target. 45-second cooldown. So if people are chasing you, instead of you having to put all your hots on yourself, you go ahead and just put overgrowth on yourself, and it puts all that stuff on you, and then you have Druid of the Claw, and then you have Revitalize, and then you have Guardian Affinity, and Cultivation, and Flourish, and it's just, I mean, how do you kill the Restoration Druid? What do you do? That's basically what it is. So they have great PvP talents. Restoration Druids are going to be as frustrating as they have been in the past to kill. Definitely comparing this next to a Restoration Shaman, I'm going to have to get the edge to a Restoration Druid because it really feels like the annoyance is back. And part of the reason why I loved playing a Restoration Druid is back. So in PvP, I have, just so you guys know, I have played Restoration Druid, Restoration Shaman, and and a little bit of Mistwalker Monk, and those are really the only healing classes that I have played in PvP. So I've gone back and forth between Restoration Druid and Restoration Shaman. I believe I played Restoration Shaman in Cataclysm, and actually ever since Cataclysm, and then before that I played Restoration Druid. So we'll see how things go. I played a little bit of Restoration Druid in Warlords of Draenor, but I ended up not liking it so much, so hopefully things will turn around this time around. I really do like the talents that are coming. The abilities really haven't changed that much for Restoration Druid. The only thing that you can really look forward to, if you're a little bit disappointed, is going to be the talents that are coming for a Restoration Druid. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys will enjoy Restoration Druid in World of Warcraft Legion. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. Tierlis out.